Welcome back to Position Zero. In today's video, we will be continuing part 2 of 400 ELO versus Odyssey bot series. So I played the 1250 bot sirs, which if you were to compare me to a bot, 1200 would be roughly around my level. So it kind of was a pretty even game. I did this on my actual Position Zero account instead of my account that I usually use for these videos, but it doesn't actually make a difference. So I started with e4. Of course, I'm the white pieces, and the Odyssey bot is the black pieces. She plays c5, the Sicilian defense, very common in chess, of course. I played d4, which is actually the Smith-Morra gambit, which I don't actually study chess openings that much, but I'm pretty sure she takes, yeah. And then after this, I do take back with my queen here on d4. Afterwards, we get to move c7 with her queen, which is, I don't like getting, like, of course I had to bring it out early because I didn't want to be a down pawn this early on. But excluding that, I don't really like to bring out my queen this early. So we get to move c3 and queen to b6. Queen to b6 looks like a safe move at first, but the idea is, of course, queen takes on b6, and then pawn takes on b6. And now you have a double pawn structure, which is really bad to have this early on. If you look at the eval bar here, although we're completely even in material, I'm up in an advantage where I'm nearly up a knight or a bishop. So in this position, I go e3, which is kind of insane now that I think about it. I would have just gone to f3, developed my knight, and then I may have gone e3, but it's a bit interesting. She plays the move d5, completely hanging a pawn. Now at this point, I was really confused because I thought the bot would be better, like slightly better than me, but so far it's been playing pretty bad. So I simply took on d5, which is actually inaccuracy, but better than a mistake. She plays the move d7, simply developing a knight because she can't develop to the c6 square. I develop my f3 knight, and she decides to push another pawn on e6, which I of course take, which is an excellent move in the position. She retreats her knight rather than taking back. I guess. So I took again, which was the best move in the position. Forking in the king and knight, and of course king has to take. And now now black can't castle. So after I castle, black plays the move bishop c5. Now I got a little cocky because I was up 2 points of material, so I simply took. But it's still the best move in the position. Now, at this point, I just wanted to trade everything off because I trusted myself in an endgame where I'm up 2 pawns against the spot, which is kind of risky. Black takes back on c5, and then we have the move bishop to c4, which is technically hitting the king along with hitting the knight at back. King retreats to f6. Obviously, I can still take the knight, but it's defended by the rook. I did take the knight, which was actually a miss. There was a better move in this position, and I think that move was knight to d5. No, yeah, the move was knight to d5 because I think it would lead to an eventual fork of 2 pieces, but it was okay. Rook takes back, and then I go rook to e1. This is where I start to make a lot more mistakes, as you can see, between 14 and 7 moves 14 and 17. King goes to f7 rather than developing a knight or a bishop, but I guess they have their reasons. I'm not entirely sure. I played a move rook to d2. She plays h8, and then I stack my rooks. Again, I still believe I'm missing on knight to d5, which is still the better move. Bishop e6 develops the rook, so it's in general a good move. I go rook to d8. My idea is I just want to trade out the rooks. We get the move c6. Now that I think about it, I feel like I would have liked to take this rook. I'm not entirely sure. But the reason was I wanted to take this rook was because it was staying down at a2. So I did take that rook. Rook takes back. But yeah, now that I think about it, this taking on here would just move another rook to position it back on a to look at a2. So taking here would have been better because it would have enabled the rook to position this side. We get the move, finally the move g5, which I can't do d5 now, of course. Well, I could, but I suppose it would be fine, but I did this because I get excited when I see a fork, even if the other piece is defended. King to f6, it's okay because it still guards the rook. I take the bishop, king takes, pawn pushes on b3 to give the king an escape square worst case. And we're in practically an end game where he has 4 pawns, a rook, and a knight, and I have a knight and rook with over 6 pawns. So we still are up 2 pawns. We get the move h5 from black, which is actually an excellent move. And then I do the move e4, I'm just trying to take center space with my knight. My knight's now in a really optimal position. We get the move f5 from black, which is a move just intended to attack the black knight. I take the pawn, and here black takes the pawn. Now I was quite nervous about this move, but I just simply ignored at the time and took on b7, which was the best move. And then the knight went to b4, and I have a tendency when I see an attack, I feel like I'm just going to get fried. So I started making mistakes in this position, and now my advantage was greatly decreased itself. But then black went a7, attacking my knight. So it was my opportunity to fight back. I did c3. I didn't want to risk this back again. So by attacking the knight, I'd force this basically. Knight takes on, the rook takes on b7, and I take the knight. Both were the best moves in the position. Now the king slides to g4. I bring my rook to d4. And now I just start giving checks, push this pawn. And from this point onwards, the black rook has to remain in a greatly defensive position, trying to not let my pawn promote, despite only being 2 squares away. So I just start doing more checks. My idea is if I can check it enough, I will have enough free spaces where the rook is away from the pawn. I'm not sure how that makes sense, but that was just my idea. We get to move h7. Now the move king to c2. The idea was just to bring the king all the way up, to force the rook to want to run away or take the pawn. And that continues. The rook, if it slides to f7, and then it just randomly slides back, which is a mistake because the king is going to come either way. We get the move c6. Rook slides away to b8, the best move in this position because it's still looking. But after the move b7, king to g5, and my king to c7, this position is officially lost. There's a guaranteed mate in 19. But this game ends at move 56. So in about 15 moves. Black moves to f8. And I promote the queen. Black takes. White takes. Now I just go very simple here. I give us some check, which kind of just wasted a move. And now that I think about it, I should have just gone down to d1 immediately and then have promoted the b pawn. But this works either way. Now I go down to d1. I move my king out of the way in case I somehow lose the rook. It's still guaranteed to queen. I push the pawn, get the queen. And there was a mate in 3, but I can't see mate in 3s with a queen and rook, which is kind of insane. But the king does the best move in this position, which is f6. And then I start giving a bunch of checks with the queen. This was really good. I'm not sure how it wasn't the best move, because it blocks the king's escape, and then I'll just have ladder mate. But I'm assuming the king can slowly somehow get closer and prevent the ladder mate. But the king went h7, which is somehow the best move. I'm not sure. But I do the move d7, and after king to h8, which was the only move in the position, I end it with queen to e8. Now, this is part 2 of the series, of course. We still have the bot that is going to completely destroy me, the 1700 bot. But that will be undercovered in part 3. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Bye.